Joining me now is Shannon Everett with American Truckers. He's back because the problem is still a problem. Take a look at this video. Have you seen this, guys? Take a look at this. Can you even imagine? Joining me now is Shannon Everett. Shannon, where did this happen? What's the story behind this tragic situation?
Yeah, this crash happened in Indiana when the driver, who was already driving too fast, wasn't keeping his following distance from the truck in front of him, come upon that stopped truck. And instead of doing what everybody's trained to do, which is turn to the right, to the shoulder, to the trees, to the ditches, to the woods, all of that stuff. Unfortunately, drivers do have to make that sacrifice because we know that we have everybody else's lives, the responsibility of everyone else's lives in our hands. And so instead of choosing to bail to the right, he went to the left and went into oncoming traffic head on and killed a family. It was
Four Amish people. A dad. 4 Amish people.
That's right. That's right. And so how are these guys still on the road?
Yeah, that was my next question. That was actually my next question. How is it these guys are still on the road? Because I thought we had done a program on this over a year ago now, and we got the attention of Fox News, which keeps having you back on, and others. But I think we were one of the first national outlets to break some of this, and here we are, and it's still going on. What, Logan? Yeah, Duffy did a press conference on it after we were talking with you about it for a while. It finally, percolated to the top and got some attention, but it's still going on. How hard is this to get these people off the road?
Yeah, so I really appreciate your community, your listeners. Absolutely, y'all were on the front edge of this and have been with us in this fight ever since it started at that grassroots level. It's now a national story.
Right.
But that grassroots effort is important for everybody to understand because your voice matters and you getting involved and speaking up is how we get the attention of Duffy and how we get the executive order out of the president. And that's what we need right now. We need more people speaking up still because the problem's not fixed. And that's because while Duffy has issued an interim final, well, it's now a final ruling. It's not interim. He's issued a final ruling that they can no longer issue non-domiciled CDLs to these illegal aliens who are in possession of these EAD cards, which still makes them an illegal alien. He has not revoked their licenses. So the FMCSA and the USDOT are aware that hundreds of thousands of commercial driver's licenses were illegally issued to illegal aliens. And through their own guidance. So the FMCSA in 2019 gave guidance to state DMVs and said, hey, y'all give these CDLs to these illegal aliens. Okay. Now, Duffy comes into office and he's like, what the hell have y'all done? He takes away their ability to do that, but nobody has revoked the licenses. And so they're still, we estimate, my estimate is 876,000. JB Hunt put out a report that enumerated it at around 600,000. The FMCSA has admitted it's at least 200,000 of these guys still on the road. So while they're not issuing any more, your family's still driving next to hundreds of thousands of these guys every day. And I think that's completely unacceptable.
Yeah, well, I would agree 100% with you. Completely unacceptable. Let's go back to your report. This is over at your website, your Twitter feed, which folks should follow. I'm going to give it here in a minute, but I want to scroll through real quick because I saw this post today on my own, and then I see it's over at your website. And it might give us an indication of where we're going with the economy as well. Take a look and listen at this. Here we go.
Continue to be tight. Tender rejections are at 14.01%. This is a sign that capacity is not loosening up, despite the fact that weather is well behind us. In fact, last week was one of the best weeks of weather that we've had in some time, and yet tender rejections stayed extremely, extremely high compared to where they've been in many years. What I think is really interesting is that we are starting to see that as conditions tighten up, we're hearing that shippers are finding it harder and harder to rely upon their carriers to take freight at the existing rates. We're also finding that brokers are talking a lot about the fact that they're having to pay up significantly for spot market capacity. If conditions hold, if we see strong tender rejections continue for the next couple of weeks, is a very clear sign that this market is not going to suddenly flip into the kinds of conditions that we've known over the last couple of years. This market is completely different, where the fact that this is happening in mid-February should be noted by everybody that's in freight. This is very atypical. February is arguably one of the weakest months of the year. January, you end up with a lot of sort of returns that drive a lot of the market, gift card season that drives a lot of the market. February doesn't really have a ton of things that are real catalysts, and we don't really see catalysts in freight until we enter March, where you start seeing the spring shipping season. Things like gardening, construction, produce, those all start in March, and then beverages heat up as we get into the later portions of the spring as the weather gets hotter. Things like beer and water bottles and sodas and all that stuff does peak as we head into the summer. And so the fact that this is happening in February is the strongest sign that the Great Freight Recession is clearly over with. And I think it's something that shippers should take note. It's going to be harder and harder to rely upon your motor carriers to honor those existing rates. If you've done an RFP this season, you should expect that the carriers that bid these RFPs are probably going to expect some kinds of rate concession as you head into the year, because they probably had an orientation of thinking that freight would be softer than it just turned out to be. Therefore, prepare to ensure that you have some backups built into your routing guides.
So the economy, is that a sign the economy's doing better?
We are seeing some increased demand, a slight increase in demand, but really what we're seeing is the effects of immigration enforcement on the trucking industry. You know, if you go back to September, when our team had the opportunity to brief the executives of ICE, 5 days after that briefing, after we explained exactly what was taking place in the trucking industry, they conducted Operation Guardian in the western port of Oklahoma, where they pulled in 500 trucks off of Interstate 40 in a random inspection. And of the 500, 120 of those trucks were put out of service and the drivers deported for being illegal immigrants in possession of these illicit non-domiciled CDLs.
So out of 500, did you say 120?
120. You can go back and research that with Operation Guardian. They've since conducted, I think, an additional 4 operations at all of their ports of entry in the south, north, and east, and have found the same problem at all of their ports. And so ICE is now fully aware of what's taking place, and they're focused on this population. And I got to say, the interim final ruling is good. The stopping of the issuance of the non-domiciled CDLs, but the lack of revocation is a serious concern for everyone. And Homeland Security, under the Secretary Noem and the leadership of Director Todd Lyons at ICE, have been doing a phenomenal job. Really, what he's describing in that video is the result of the work that's being done at the Department of Homeland Security to crack down on this illegal immigration. And so we need more of that. We've got a brochure that we've been sharing, and that talks about some of the state initiatives. If the federal government's going to continue to fail us at the FMCSA and at the USDOT by not revoking illegal CDLs that they told everybody to issue, then we have to take matters into our own hands at the state level. And the way that we can do that is that state law enforcement officers can cooperate with ICE through a 287G program. And so whoever's responsible for commercial motor vehicle enforcement, their leadership signs a 287G with ICE, and then their officers are deputized and trained to enforce immigration laws. And that's how you put an end to this. Because even though the USDOT and FMCSA want to allow these guys to continue to have these CDLs, they do not have lawful status. And the minute that they're inspected or stopped, the driver is going to get deported.
Well, I just did the math on it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if you pull over 500 trucks randomly, and 120 are guys that are illegal CDL drivers and are deported, that's 24%.
We do believe there's a higher concentration on Interstate 40 because it's a main artery coming out of the California market. And California is one of the worst perpetrators or one of the worst ones that proliferated the issuance of all these CDLs. And so I do think that that's heavy there in the state of Oklahoma. So definitely the states along those corridors that are going to California need to be paying a lot more attention. But I think you'll see those percentages decline in other markets.
All right, let's go to another one. Here's another sad story. Here we go.
This morning, new information about the suspect who killed a beloved educator in Savannah Monday. Authorities say the crash occurred near the Truman Parkway as a man fled a traffic stop involving immigration enforcement. Department of Homeland Security has identified the suspect as Oscar Vasquez Lopez of Guatemala. Officials say he was issued a final order of removal by a federal judge back in 2024. They say he entered the U.S. illegally at an unknown time and location. Lopez now faces multiple charges, including vehicular homicide. Investigators say he drove away from ICE officers before the crash. In a statement, Homeland Security's Assistant Secretary saying these dangerous tactics are putting people's lives at risk. Fleeing from and resisting federal law enforcement is not only a crime, but extraordinarily dangerous. The victim, Dr. Davis, was a special education teacher at Hess K-8, located less than a mile from the crash site.
Pitiful. And we got stories of illegals killing Americans over and over, vehicular homicide, sex trafficking, sexual assault, murder, nonstop. We got this Epstein thing of children. Makes your stomach turn. And yet, I hate to say it, all I hear about when I walk through the room and see some of these news stations is Nancy Guthrie. Isn't this a wonderful distraction from what's really going on and impacting everyday Americans? 4 Amish people just killed by an illegal. I mean, it's nonstop. But all of this emphasis on Nancy Guthrie. And of course, again, this is where you got to say, I hope she comes back safely. And I do. But I'm so sick of our media taking one story and writing it for months and months on end, while all of these other stories that impact every one of us. Now, Nancy Guthrie does not impact me. It does not impact you. None of us are impacted by Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. I'm sorry it happened. I pray she's safely returned, but it does not impact me or my family's safety or these children. And yet we have all of these other urgent stories being ignored, and I'm sick of it. And I would think that I'm not the only one. I just happen to have the guts to say it. Comment?
I would think one of those cases, one of those stories that we really need the attention on of the national media and your listeners is the fact that there's no accountability in these crashes. Now, I don't know who the shipper is and who the broker is on the crash in Indiana with the Amish family that was killed. We should know that. It's a travesty that we don't know that. They were quick to tell you who the trucking company was. They're quick to tell you who the driver was and throw them on the bus. But who hired that company? Who hired the illegal alien to haul that freight? Who was the broker that gave him that load? And so everyone should understand that right now, with all of these crashes, with the egregiousness that's taking place in the trucking industry by licensing a bunch of illegal truck drivers, that the U.S. DOT and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration just issued an amicus brief to the Supreme Court requesting that the brokers who give them freight receive immunity from damages in the crashes. That Supreme Court case is Montgomery versus Caribe, Caribe, and the United States government sided on the side of the brokers that brokers should receive immunity from tort claims when it comes to these tragic crashes. Now, not every crash involves illegal aliens, but I can tell you this, every crash that has illegal aliens involves brokers. And so that applies to this story. And so if you look at all these major crashes that we've had over the last, since this new administration, it takes 2 to 3 years for these crashes to adjudicate and for these families to be compensated for their damages, whether it's for the injuries or for the fatalities. Well, most of these trucking companies only carry a minimum federal requirement of $750,000 worth of insurance. Almost all of these carriers that are operating using illegal aliens have no balance sheets. They're all ghost chameleon operations that are structured and built to just shut down and reopen under a new name. in case of a disaster or calamity. And so what would happen, Brandon, if you were in a wreck tomorrow and something happened to one of your family members, you would pursue the driver. He would flee to his home country. So there's no accountability for him. You would sue the trucking company. You would have access to an insurance policy, maybe if he has insurance. Most cases they do, but only for $750,000. So if like in the case of Indiana, if there's four people dead that have lost their lives, lost their ability to earn income for the rest of their lives and take care of their families, do you think $750,000 is going to scratch that? No, it's not. But that's all you're going to get because the company, like in the case of the one in Indiana, has already been put out of service. It's going to be defunct now. It's gone. So there won't be any pursuit of the company in their balance sheet because I'm sure they don't have one. And now USDOT and FMCSA want that broker who gave them the load to have immunity. I would argue that the profiteers of this entire ecosystem are the billion-dollar brokerages that are giving them the loads. Those are the exact people we need to be going after, not giving them immunity.
And this is what you tweeted about today. The American people have been sold out by the ATA, brokers, and FMCSA. That's what you're talking about right now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So a lot of people are getting rich.
The fact that multi-billion-dollar operations have captured the regulatory lobbying organization, which is the American Trucking Association, and they have the ear of all of our legislators.
There you go. So a lot of people getting really, really rich, but apparently they will not be held account if they are involved in knowingly hiring illegal alien drivers that kill and maim people. Is that what you're telling me?
That's right.
So once again, we're seeing that the laws in this country, which I believe by and large, the laws in America are written by criminals for criminals. The laws in America are largely written by criminals for criminals. White-collar criminals are writing the laws that allow other white-collar criminals to get away with a lot. And then, of course, trickles down to the non-white-collar criminals. That's my opinion, because why else would you allow this kind of stuff to stand? It's really what Frederick Bastiat talked about in his classic book, The Law. Elected officials that get involved for the enrichment of themselves and their special interests. And he called it plundering. They will plunder for themselves and their special interests. How is that not breaking at least the moral law, the laws of nature and nature's God, rewarding lawlessness, being involved in doing things and setting up things you know is going to cause damage to people, harm to people, death to people? Where is their fiduciary responsibility to law and order, which is the function and purpose of government, Romans 13, to make a stable and just society, reward the righteous, punish the wicked, make a stable society for those who obey the God-ordained laws? Not that every law by man is ordained. They can pass a lot of legislation that has nothing to do with God's character and nature. But in our republic, that's what they're supposed to do, according to our republic, is our laws are not to violate the character and nature of God. And the Bible's very clear about not taking advantage of the poor. It's very clear about not starving people from their duly wage because you give the work to people who are illegal, or you use the system to enrich people. The Bible speaks against exploiting the poor. It would also be against exploiting the average person. Thou shalt not steal. And what are these multinational, humongous corporations doing if not rigging the system so they can make billions of dollars at the expense of the safety and livelihood of the citizens? I mean, I can see it no other way, in my opinion. Can you?
No, not at all. And that's exactly what's taking place in the trucking industry. You have multi-billion-dollar businesses hiding behind the presumption of immunity to exploit and force illegal immigrants, slaves, into doing their work and their bidding for them, and that's resulted in taking all of the market share away from our safe, properly structured and with proper investments in safety and technologies that we see in all of our American trucking companies. The ones that are spending the money on the safety, that are on the technology, cannot compete with this new illicit ecosystem.
Okay, you just said something interesting. So some of these illegal drivers are really slaves. Have they been brought here? Have they been brought here? And
we call it forced labor.
So some of them, some of them come here against their will?
They're being worked against their will. And so they're being forced to work beyond their required hours of service. And we do believe that some of them are being forced to come here and to stay here against their will.
So some of them maybe even were kidnapped, if you will, rounded up and brought here to work and didn't even want to come here.
I don't know exactly that might be the case. I know from a forced labor position, they're being forced to work. They're being told what they're going to be paid, and there are examples of their family and stuff receiving threats when they don't do what they're told to do.
So, okay, so now that kind of changes the picture a little bit, because now you're thinking about the guy who somehow finds himself in this position, whether he was forced to come here or whether he came here illegally. Of course, that was his first mistake. But once he got here, he's now being threatened. His family's being threatened unless he takes a job for sounds like peanuts compared to what he should be being paid if he had gone through all the training like American truckers. I mean, that kind of changes the whole scene. So now we have people that are committing crimes, but in one essence, they also, some of them are potentially victims of this criminal system. It sounds like a criminal network. Are there organized criminal gangs involved in this? Is this cartels? Who's involved in this?
It's absolutely organized crime from the top all the way to the bottom. And so, there's a lot of drivers coming forward now telling us the stories. We're gathering those, but I think this public's going to be shocked to understand the level of nefarious activity and depravity that has taken place in the trucking industry when we have reduced all of the standards to absolutely nothing, and we've turned it. Essentially, our American Trucking Association has turned our trucking industry into the wild, wild west.
Okay, so what percentage of this is also, if it's organized crime is involved, what percentage of this has to do with transporting drugs and human trafficking?
Oh, I believe it's all connected.
And where are our politicians?
So I think you can tell our movement was very strong with the executive branch. The administration is fully supportive. Duffy's been fully supportive of a crackdown. Where we've seen a problem has been in the legislative side of it, and that's because the American Trucking Association has captured our regulatory environment. We have regulatory capture in the trucking industry. We have a trucking association that spends $50 million a year lobbying their positions with their dollars, and those people are fighting against us for revoking these non-domiciled CDLs, and they have the ears of the legislators, and right now the legislators have sided with the American Trucking Association against the American people.
Have you received any threats or any letters or emails or phone calls or voicemails that basically is telling you back off, knock this off?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My movement started with the death threats, and so yes, they've continued.
And you believe that's some of this organized cartel gangs and what mafia type groups?
We know who it is. So the teams are aware, but at the end of the day, life is a spiritual battle. It's much more than flesh. My God called me to this fight. And so he's going to have to call me off of it.
Yeah. And amen. And we'll ask our audience to pray for your safety and that of your team. But you're telling me in closing here that your group is receiving threats for the light that you're shining on this darkness. You guys
Absolutely.
are receiving threats that this is highly organized and it's criminal, and it involves basically what is forced labor, slave labor, drug trafficking, and human trafficking, right?
That's correct.
And yet, you would think there'd be congressional hearings on this. Are we going to get any congressional hearings on this on Capitol Hill?
I think you will find congressional hearings this year. I hope and pray that we do.
And hopefully the media will cover it and talk about it. The
media's been doing a good job. I think you can tell that, pretty much all the mainstream media has been having us on. We've been allowed to share our voice and our position on things. Unfortunately, the legislators listen to the lobbyists. They don't listen to the mainstream media. And so I just keep praying for a breakthrough with our congressional leaders. I think I honestly think they don't know what to believe. And so I believe that once they have a complete understanding of the issue, they'll do the right thing.
Let's pray that's the case. But you know what? Money is the love of money is the root of all evil. And some of these people, you have to wonder how much of them are being paid to turn a blind eye. Any idea?
Yes. No, I don't. I just know that they're, I believe they'll do the right thing when they have the right information.
Well, let's give them the right information. You guys can go there and find it and share it with your elected officials. There you go. American Truckers, they're ATU Truckers. ATU Truckers is their handle on X. Shannon, as always, thanks for being with us.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Wow. Very important story, folks. Shouldn't be dangerous to take a trip with your family. Shouldn't have to risk being killed. I mean, driving is dangerous enough without what we've been seeing here in these videos. And think about that. 500 trucks pulled over and 120 of them, 500 random trucks pulled over and 120 are guys that shouldn't even have a CDL or illegal who get deported. We'll be right back.